Hi, this is Mr. West, and today we're doing a walkthrough video for multiplying negative numbers. This is sheet 2 from Math-Salamanders.com. Make sure to check out Math-Salamanders. They have tons of great worksheets and other resources. So what we needed to figure out in this video is you've probably already seen multiplication of positive numbers. So what about negative numbers? We're going to talk about what it means. The kind of main talking point for multiplying positives and negatives is talking about like signs or unlike signs. So if they have a like sign, that means they're the same. So in this first example, let me undo. In this first example, we have a positive times a positive. They're the same. Positive times a positive. Second example is also the same. We have a negative times a negative. They're the same. So they're like signs. In either scenario, if you multiply positive times a positive or negative times a negative, you get a positive. Okay? So that's why it says you get a positive when you multiply like signs. This is understandable, positive times a positive, but why is it a negative times a negative is also a positive? I like to think of this as the opposite. So if we have a negative number, okay, so we can just come up with an example like negative 2, and then we multiply it by a negative, so just put a negative like that, we're essentially saying what is the opposite of a negative 2? And the opposite of a negative 2 is a positive 2. And that's why when you multiply two negatives together, you get a positive. Okay, so let's go over to the unlike signs. So unlike signs, they're different. So we have a positive, that's a negative. Negative times a positive and positive times a negative. Either scenario, you're going to get a negative. Okay, now why is that? Well, I like this first scenario. If you have a positive number, again, multiplying by a negative is essentially like saying what is the opposite of a positive? Well, the opposite of a positive is a negative, okay? And then you'll see that this scenario right here is just the same. It's just written a little differently. We say the opposite of a positive, kind of going backwards. So the opposite of a positive is also a negative. So opposite of a positive, negative, positive, opposite, negatives. That's why it's negative, and that's why over here for like signs, they're positive. So that's like the main thing you need to know. And then you just apply your normal multiplication rules. So here we see, let's go ahead and choose a color. Let's do this blue one. So we have a negative times a positive, okay? So negative times a positive. They're unlike signs, so we know we're going to get a negative number. So we have negative 6 times 4, that's 24, but we need to make it negative. So if I only see one negative sign with two numbers being multiplied, I know it's going to be negative. The second one, we have a positive times a negative. So we're going to get 14, and it's because it's a negative, we're going to say the opposite of 14. Okay, so this is essentially, there's another way. You might see this in upper level math. You could say this is really negative 1 times 6 times 4. So then we get 24, and then we say, oh, what's the opposite of negative 24? Or you can just, since we can just make it negative, makes it negative 24. Okay, so that's just a third way to think about it. But yeah, it's not that bad. Most of these are going to be negative because I only see one sign, so this is going to be negative 36. We have negative 88. Here we have a negative times a negative. So we do the 5 times the 4, we get 20. And then we say, okay, it's a negative, but then we also have another negative. So the opposite of a negative, this is going to be a positive. You're not going to put a plus sign, though, because with positive numbers, you just leave it as just a normal number, okay? So anytime you see the two negatives, like in number 6, you're just going to get a positive. You don't need to put the plus sign. This one would be negative 28, negative 54, negative 60, and then positive 56. That's a 60, by the way, not a 66. Okay, so that's all there is to that side. It looks like the right is pretty much the same. If you want, maybe just go down the row and make these negative first, and this one's positive, and this one's positive, and this one's negative, 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 positive, positive, negative. Okay, that'd be one way to do it. I'm going to go ahead and erase it just because I want to keep it clean. And I don't want to do all these for you. That's half the battle. It's just doing this for yourself and working your way through it. You can always check your answers later. All right, so use two numbers from the list. This is part B. To answer each of the following questions. I'll do a few of these too. I'll do 1 through 4. So we have something times something equals negative 35. Well, the only two numbers that will give us 35 period are 7 and negative 5. So let's put those in there. Positive times negative equals negative. Now we have positive 32. The only numbers that give us 32 are 8 and 4. But there's two negatives, so we're just going to have to use the two negatives. That will work. Also, negative times negative is equal to a positive. Negative 10. We could actually do negative 10 times 1 for that one. And then number 4, Negative 56. This section's actually not that bad. Negative 8 times 7. All right, find 4 different ways using the numbers above to complete these equations. So now we have something a little bit more challenging. We're going to have negative 5 times 4. Okay, we're going to have negative 10 times negative 2. And then let's see if we can come up with another one. Probably negative 4 times negative 5. And I'm going to say the last one for you. I'm sure you guys can figure it out. And then last one, choose 3 numbers from the list to complete this equation. Let's see if I can help you out with this one. Okay, so I would try to use a 2. If we have 2, that get 2 times 24 gives us 48. And then I know that 8 times 3 gives me 24. So I know that 2 times 8 times 3. Problem is it's positive 48, so we're going to need negative, that will be positive, and then we have a positive 3. It will stay positive. That's a really good problem there. I don't know if that's the only way to do it, but you should check to see if it is or it is not. Maybe try a couple different options. So that's all there is to this exercise. Hope you guys like this walkthrough. If you have any questions, leave a comment. And I also have a Math-Salamanders playlist if you want to check out more content by them. And look forward to seeing you next time right here on West Explains Best.